warming up the space. David, it's so good to see your brilliant silhouette in the space of Bunnell.
Yeah.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Oh,
Fantastic.
great
Oh
day.
my gosh, does it
Morning.
look good in there? Well, let me give a brief introduction and then we will jump in. You're listening to Inspiration and Adaptation. I'm Asia Freeman, Artistic Director of Bunnell Street Arts Center, and delighted to host this weekly podcast in which we explore artistic innovations, adaptations during these unprecedented times. Bunnell Street Arts Center is situated within the tribal lands of Nichiltana, Ninilchik Village. Descendants trace their roots from the ancient Ketchimak peoples and the Dena'ina and Sugpiaq people of this region. Bunnell Street Arts Center is grateful to work and live on these lands. And we're committed to resisting colonialism by partnering with Indigenous artists and supporting Indigenous-led practices. Today I'm speaking with David Brame, an Afrofuturist and scholar whose newest installation, Dusty Funk, opens tonight at Bunnell Street Arts Center. David's most recent scholarly creative accomplishments include Sanford Bigger's Code Switch in collaboration with Professor John Jennings, the Bronx Museum, and produced by Yale University Press. His scholarly work geared towards Black youth is called The Struggle, produced by Minnesota Press, and he has a forthcoming, actually, it's already out, the graphic novel After the Rain, disseminated by Abrams Megascope, a short story written by Nnedi Okorafor and adapted by Professor John Jennings. His comic work explores issues of race and identity in the context of the American South, Black Gothica, mysticism, and the African diaspora. David, it's just so fantastic to have you with us today in this dialogue and in Homer. You know, I think of you as a rising star within Afrofuturism, and you have so many reputable collaborators. I mean, just a couple days ago, you served on a panel on Afrofuturism for Sundance Film Festival, I discovered. And I'm like, wow, why did you choose to settle in Alaska? And how did we get lucky enough to have you in Homer? Why now?
I have a friend who always lets me know, just you're always in the right place, or I guess you're always in the place you need to be. So I
Mm,
guess Homer was the place that I needed to be. I mean, there was just it took a certain confluence of things to happen for me to end up in Homer. I would say again, and like just so the sort of like pandemic happening, just these sort of changes like happening in terms are in the space of my career, in terms of maybe deciding whether I want to be more on the academic side, or more on the artistic side, or more on the industrious, go back to industry or that kind of thing. So having all of that going on all at the same time, and really being pushed, I guess, in a way to decide where do I want to spend, uh, you know, uh, my life, and how do I want to spend it? Do I want to spend it somewhere in a dungeon in the Midwest, with no no good sunlight, and and living that life, or do I want to be in a beautiful place where it's majestic, where I can um, have space to breathe, where the people around me are they're helpful and they're supportive, and there's like a really good sense of people. So that's what this was about, and that's why I'm here, and I wanted to contribute to that space, I think. Homer is full of a bunch of, I like to think of them as like, it's a collection of geniuses. It's like people who choose to be here, who all have something they want to say and have a way they want to contribute to the sort of the melting pot that is Homer. And I want to be part of that and, you know, be one of the people that helps build it.
Yeah, it's thrilling. It's super invigorating to see how energetically and generously you're nesting yourself into the community now with this installation that is about to open tonight at Bunnell Street Arts Center. And you've titled this multimedia experience Dusty Funk. And you and I agreed that we might call this conversation Dusty Funk 101. Like, what is Dusty Funk? Orient us to what this thought project is about.
Okay, so Dusty Funk is inspiration. He is sort of inspiration incarnate, you know. Uh, the sort of the nascent building blocks of Dusty was, I guess it kind of started in my graduate work. Um, you know, my first show was called Pickaninny Circus, and it was, you know, it was about sort of my disdain for the sort of monetization. I'm sorry if that word.
Monetization. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to make. I was mad that people were making money out of blackness and out of things that were created out of blackness, and then you know turned into something else. You know, so I wanted to sort of add my little piece, and then I had a little character that showed up in this. I made these little box books, art box books. So you know, and they're these little squares of sort of like scrapbooking material that I drew on. So sort of the beginning idea was there. So I sort of took that idea and I kind of ran with it. I had this little character who was like this little space dude that kind of just kept showing up, and all of these little sort of pyramids that I was making. So he became kind of the like this icon of inspiration that let me have the experience of what do I want to talk about. He was sort of like the avatar of inspiration and how I wanted to connect that with who I was as an individual and as a creator. Yeah, so like Dusty Funk is that, and so that's sort of like a loose sort of like nebulous idea of what he is. But then, you know, the more solid idea of what he became later on was this embodiment of you know, who I was as an individual and who I saw myself reflected in like other individuals. So so there's like you know, I always like to say like Black people are not a monolith, but there's like these moments where you like you know, where somebody's like, I know that guy. Like everybody's got a, you know, their Black friend, or everybody's got a, you know, you look just like that one guy, or whoever. So then I started to see these you know, these kind of like these little bits of, you know, these connections, you know, of what are these bits of Blackness that connect people, you know, like that make people who are not, I guess, within the Black diaspora have that bit of feeling, that bit of connection to how people see an individual. So that became sort of how I started to build this idea of Dusty Funk as this sort of monolith of sort of, I guess, in my position, like sort of millennial Black, or I guess Black male millennialness, you know, if that makes sense. Like, so there's this like, it's like a group of Black men and people who identify in that space that you know, they're kind of trapped between um, these multiple worlds, right? Of sort of, sort of the newer generation, you know, like our younger generations, Gen Z and whatever's going to be coming after that, like the way that they deal with, you know, art, the way they deal with technology, the way they deal with uh, emotions, therapy, like those kinds of things. The way they deal with their whole concept of Blackness is like, and their concept of identity is a little bit more understood and nuanced. And
You've
then,
you know, about this, David, you've written really beautifully, and I wanted to quote a piece and ask you to maybe unpack it a little bit with us. You said, describing that experience, you said, caught between eras of wokeness and forced hypermasculinity, bombarded with the duality of black male excellence and black male fetishistic myths, add in an education and justice system stymied by institutional racism, creates a caustic mix of anger and creativity. Second, and you might have been on mute. David, I had just quoted that piece
oh
that you
yeah,
had written, and I think
okay.
I missed, I think you were on mute when you might have been starting to talk about, you know, unpacking that sort of rich, complex amalgam of intersecting experiences that just that kind of describe your position.
Yeah, like I mean, that's like those words are I guess pretty salient. You know, like you know, you have to like I guess it's each piece of that little of what I wrote. Like it's about also it's all about these dualities, where um, you have you're kind of like reaching for something, right? There's aspiration that's built into sort of the American um, identity, you know,
Totally.
and so having that built into you, there's also this extra level of black excellence, like that was sort of mentioned, and it permeates everything that you do, like where you have you have two options where you can be like a thug, you can be the bad kid, or you can be a terrible deadbeat dad or whatever, you know, like whatever the sort of negative connotations of black identity, black male identity is. And then like you have the positive of that, which is you're a successful, you know, artist, entertainer, entrepreneur, you know, you make a lot of money, you know, like, or whatever, you know. And that's your duality. There's no middle ground. There's no um, expectations of for you to like grow and for you to fail. You know, like there's no gray area for blackness and black identity. Like you have you can either be ultra successful or you can be you know, or you can be forgotten. You can become part of that. And so unpacking that, like we wanted to, not we, but like within Dusty Funk and within these sort of caricaturizations I built, like I'm tackling how people's expectations of that or I guess I'm mediating those expectations in a way, because black male identity, Black millennial male identity, is complex and it is nuanced, and it comes with, all of the things that I would say our white counterparts or people who do not have those kinds of stigmatizations or stigmas on them as they grow or they make their choices.
Yeah, you have this great word for it that you've described, this place, this really compressed space where there's really no alternative, in which you're working as the Funkiverse. You said this is that surreal mind space that you're enmeshed in. What we see what he sees. That's speaking of Dusty, and we experience what he experiences. But we can only interact by looking away, or better yet, change your perspective, turn the grotesque into beauty.
Yeah. So people want to. I mean, Dusty Funk is all about getting people, out of their just, I guess, their banal expectations of a human. If you see a person, I don't know how to describe it. You have no idea what their experiences are,
Right.
And because we see people as, open books, you see their fashion choices, you see their the places that they live, you hear the way they speak, or those kinds of things. Like all of these things, like they put in data, into people's into what they think, or into how they see people.
They're like filters and data and narrowing.
And I'm trying to create a world where you can get rid of those expectations. Like that's, to me, that's what is part of like futurism and part of surrealism in a way, is being allowed to imagine a space in which people's expectations don't matter. Where your expectations of yourself don't matter, and maybe to also then have you as an audience member who may have never been like a young Black person, to put yourself in that mind space. Like I don't think that's a thing a lot of people ever do. They may have like a moment of objectivity, right? They may have moments of like where you can connect with another individual, but like it's not the same way that let's say other. I mean, I'm trying to unpack this as we're speaking. I'm sorry, but
Sure. No, absolutely.
basically, the idea is that as a we have this entire history of art, right? And it's like we've gone so deep into the white male perspective of everything, right? Like you look in the history of art, and it's like every facet of their depression, their successes, their triumphs, the way they deal with their families, the way they everything. Like it's all been dug into, and I have not seen that perspective from for people like me, and and I'm trying to create a space where that's what people are going to experience,
Absolutely. You've called it a space for outsiders, for anti-intellectuals, the socially unacceptable as well, a space in which you can explore any idea within the Black millennial male experience. Dusty Funk is graffiti at the Louvre breakdancing at Juilliard, beatboxing at the Philharmonic, and sex workers walking in Fashion Week. Black trans beauty pageant winners. Unapologetic blackness and otherness.
Um,
Beautiful writing.
yeah, thanks.
Could we could we look at an image? You could take us to one of your works and just you know show some of those threads because they all seem to be moving through the work. This explosive intersection of like music and rhythm of imagery and story and multiplicity of experience.
Yeah.
Decompressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me queue up a few things. Let's see what. Um, yeah, so I want to use some stuff from like I guess the Dusty Funk and Dusty Funk stuff. Like and let's look that, or I guess, do I share my screen? Is that the best way?
While you're queuing up an image and we're seeing some work surrounding you. There we go. Great. And this is one of the works that are in your show.
Oh, yeah, I'm sort of taking you through like so Dusty Funk sort of started as like this like part of the idea, I guess, is bringing in old things like nostalgia, and that's part of the inspiration that I started with. Um, and so taking that, like these sort of nostalgic pieces, and then using that to focus on um, this little character and placing him into sort of these spacey temporal worlds that where he encounters like weird monsters and like all kinds of imagery that's like somewhat like trippy, surreal, psychedelic, but also fits within this like realm of sort of nostalgia. And Dusty is always sort of like getting himself into like problems, I guess, and then he has to like get himself out of those kinds of issues. So with
Could
this,
you describe for just a moment about nostalgia and old things? Help us place this image in terms of like maybe
uh,
a history of your work or other artists' work that has that nostalgia you're referencing.
gotcha. Actually, let me like queue up another one then that would be give you a better understanding. Um,
I find it so fascinating and interesting that within this free space, this futuristic space, you're proposing you are reaching back with nostalgia, with longing, in a sense, for things of the past.
so this one is called Viewmaster. And I don't know if you guys remember, or if everyone remembers these old Viewmasters from
Yeah.
when, I don't know, I remember them from when I was a child. They were these, if you see this little red sort of shape here at the top, there were these little goggles that, they had these little, it was like basically a bunch of little slides. And I had about, maybe 36 images, and it was just random stuff. You get a collection and it say stuff like, animals of Africa, or like, cathedrals. It was always random stuff. It was never like, it was never really super interesting, but it was like this, you could just sort of click through, and it was like a handheld slide machine. So I kind of take those little bits and pieces of things that are from, I guess, my personal childhood, but I would say they're old, I guess, in a way, but and I kind of want to update them as like sort of futuristic, kind of I don't know, like pieces of technology. Like,
You're introducing like a different vision. What you see through that ViewMaster is different from what you saw as a child. And somehow it's analog too, which is very interesting to me, because what distinguishes analog from, like digital, that in a way that you love? What is it? What is it with that?
um, there's a, a corporalness, a corporate,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a corporeality. Like
Sure.
it's solid. It's heavy. I think there's something about old design that where they um, everything was made uh, industriously,
Mm-hmm.
but in such a way that it would either last a long time, or like they only had 4 versions of it or something like that, and I kind of liked that. I liked that they kept they had limitations in the way that they could make something real, right? So those limitations, like I think uh, are kind of like what make I think old stuff fun, at least to me, and the way that like it can be used as a well, I mean, as a tool. When I was a child, like let's say like this ViewMaster, like I was sort of talking about it in a sort of it was just this thing. But for me, when I was a kid, I thought I was transported to other worlds. Like it was um, the ViewMaster was more real for me as a kid than, let's say, all the Marvel movies that have ever been made. Like the amount of money and effort and time that they've put into like CGI and making things more like reality makes them feel less real, and, and less solid than these sort of nostalgic pieces. And so I guess like that kind of love of that um, of the old and of that nostalgia. It's like trying to some way to like maybe hold on to that. There's a bit.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what the right word is, but like I just want to hold on to those little bits of um, that kind of like design, that era, that sort of feeling of newness, and uh, I regret to say like childlike wonder, because I don't think that you have to be a child to have and love wonderful things, So
Mm-hmm.
um,
But there's a certain tactile sensibility in the analog object that you're speaking of holding in your hand that has this element of control. Abigail Cookai says it made her feel like she was a traveler. That's a distinct power of the small child, in a sense that you're kind of restoring to even the adult viewing experience, or the all ages viewing
yeah,
experience.
I think that is a wonderful way to put it. Yeah, like you become the traveler, and um, but it's like your mind, and you're traveling through time, and like there's a piece of this of the show. Let's see if I can change it or turn it a little bit.
Mhm.
um, Bam,
And
right there. So like there's a old piece of technology, the overhead projector. I don't know if you can see that.
mhm.
But that is like to me, things like that is I watched a bunch of people who are my age just gush over this old piece of technology, and everybody that sees it just immediately is transported, boom, to like being maybe 8, maybe 6, and it creates a linkage to um, uh,
a
to like
moment of wonder, a moment of wonder. Remember when those things got plugged in and you were just like, wow.
yeah, exactly. It's a layer of wonder. That is, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so being able to like, sort of connect with that kind of nostalgia, and then, but all parts of it too. So, I mean, we have things that maybe everybody had, or maybe not everybody, but it's like kind of ubiquitous, right? Simple things like the ViewMaster was like trash, you know, 30 years ago. Now they're like collector's items, right? As most things are.
Mhm.
But it's kind of all of that. It's like old couches that have like western scenes, and they're made of velour with the heavy wood frames, and like things feeling like uh they're tinted orange or sepia, like just in
Mhm.
your mind, like everything. uh it's kind of it's trying to activate that part of your emotional center, and um both in my, like, I guess, in my artistic choices, but in what I'm trying to create with my work.
So you're saying like in the Funkiverse, you, the artist, travels back and forth in time. It's sepia toned, it's rich, it is sort of more brilliant, like it was to look through the Viewmaster as a child. You're lifting that lens in a sense again to the experience, of the viewer, where I'm looking over your shoulder a minute ago, and we could see that overhead projector, but we could also see some lamps. Do you want to turn back just
Oh yeah.
a little bit to that view? Because what I was thinking when I saw the overhead projector and the lamps at the same time, keep going a little bit farther, is like your installation recontextualized as that overhead projector as a kind of funky lamp that opens up to a different universe. And then we look at your lamps, these lampshades and things that you've painted kind of illuminate those universes.
Yeah, yeah, that's 100%. That's better than what I was gonna say. That's yeah, but that's
Well, you say it. I mean, you say it visually, and that's
yeah,
that's the important thing.
yeah, like that's the idea, is that these, oh no, these objects are, they have value, right? And even though they're old, they can become uh, not necessarily like sort of like rehabbed in sort of like a DIY way, but in terms of their emotional value, I think is, and their sentimentality can be elevated, or can be, you can attach some sentimentality to these objects. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how it can be very risky to be sentimental about the past, and very hard to feel free in the present, potentially, as a black man today in that compressed space that you described, where there's sort of really no choice today. Could you show us another image?
Yes.
I'm also thinking as you're talking about some of your peers in the literary sense in today's world. Recently read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Water Dancer, and he creates a space of time travel that is utterly fascinating and beautiful and really in a literary sense really textured and rich as you do.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
it's a movement. It's a movement today. It's an act of freedom. It's an insistence on agency for the creator. Oh, look at that image. That is so beautiful.
So yeah. So this one's called Baby Dusty. Um, so I guess with this piece, um, it's uh, this is actually about environment and like uh, the sort of confluence of technology and um, how that, like, the pursuit of technology, I guess, also um, creates problems like death and kills animals and all that kind of stuff. But so, like, within that kind of idea is like something I think that's within Blackness that is um, I think is powerful, and in that, um, I mean, I'm not aware, but I don't feel like I ever see very many environmentalists um, who are, I guess I should say, there are a lot of Black environmentalists, and there's a lot of people who are in, like, who are Black, who are in water protector and land protecting movements. There are, Black indigenous groups who are also invested in protecting and conserving the world that they live in. But also within this, I guess, within the funkiverse, we've been talking about, there there's this idea that it's kind of like I guess it's an undiscussed topic, or maybe not as people do not see it as part of that movement. So yeah, there's that for this.
I love how this particular image describes on sort of two worlds. When you think about Baby Dusty seems to be standing in a sense on a kind of planet, right? And then looking down into this dark space and just seeing the sketch, almost like scratchboard silhouettes of these marine forms trying to reach through, like trying to have some kind of power or agency with that strong sort of futuristic hand, but a small, human, and trying to interact with this other realm that exists in that darker sphere of.
Yeah, there's this in a lot of the work you'll see later, I guess later, once you see the full show.
Tonight.
Yeah, tonight. There's this. I deal with a lot of, like, I guess, gigantism there's this feeling of immensity that both wells up within me and also exists, I think, outside, like sort of the larger they, the them, you know, the whatever that is, the sort of this disembodied idea that you know, there's a, you know, some people call it, in some spaces it might be like the man. For some people it might be the struggle, or maybe the fear of not being able to like go out and at night by yourself, or maybe the fear that, you know, that your home or things you have or whatever. So it's like sort of that disembodied big thing idea, you know, that fear. Um, so
You're talking about like the power that society wields really over the black male body and
yes,
the black body. Really, it's on Hazy Code says, you know, like it's not even our body, you know,
right.
it's
That's exactly what it is. So there's always I don't, and there's an infantilism like that happens uh, with black male identity as well, where you know, they used to call us boy, you know, and there's some people who still call us boy, you know, or they uh, you know, they use other kinds of sort of microaggressions and, you know, regressive like language, you know, where they're not saying it, but they're, you know, they're code switching them their own way, you know, and so that becomes like a monster. It becomes this big, uh, dark, evil thing, and uh, so like you kind of have to like you have to fight against that, you know, and that's like always having that sort of feeling of like a child in that space, but wanting to wield and knowing that you have this power and these abilities to help and to change in any way that you can. So like within this image, you know, he does have this like, you know, this mechanical, this cybernetic arm that, you know, is much bigger than he is, you know, and so he does have power, you know, but it maybe it's more powerful than him. I mean, we don't know, but the idea is that he's trying, you know, and despite the, I guess, sort of the massive problems that surround him, you know, and and if you see the people that he's trying to help, you know, I guess I say people, but they're whales and dolphins, you know, but you know, they're living beings. They're smiling, right? Like they're like in a way to me that so there's positivity, right? Like
mm-hmm.
and through that like kind of struggle and like sort of oil slick sludge, which is also a thing that happens. It's like it's a piece that shows up in work. I can show you something like that too, but like there's this idea that um, blackness is, and even in the terminology of blackness is evil or whatever. But I mean, I see blackness as positivity. It's everything. It's all colors or whatever. But darkness, I think, is where, you know, that's what rests in people's hearts. That's like, you know, darkness is to me is like, you know, it's semantic, but that's what like is like the evil things that we're trying to destroy.
You're in a way really talking to how power and identity, negativity or positivity are encoded into like Western thought and language around, especially blackness and whiteness, and the projection of evil in the word blackness, in darkness, in the sludge that, in the sense you call it.
Yeah, that's Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
One of our listeners asked, and I think this is a because you speak of these whales smiling. Petra asks, "Do you feel any positivity in the recent, political shifts in this country with in terms of leadership? Who's empowered? I mean, there's plenty of people who are striving for power from a
Oh yeah,
drastic leader."
I think it's always like one of those. Uh, it's an interesting thing in the black community, or in I would say also in the person of color affected person community. Uh, like you see like these wonderful changes. You see things like Kamala Harris, first black VP. We have Pete Buttigieg. We have like boom, first gay like cabinet member. We have. I mean, and I think those kinds of hits are just going to keep coming. Boom, like we're just going to keep having lots of firsts. We have first Native woman like cabinet. We're going to have probably first Muslim, like all these things that I think are as positive, visual and visible like changes, and I think they're effective. They're necessary. Um, but I also think it's like, you go cool, and then you like keep fighting, right? Like systemic racism is not like changed. I mean, we had Obama and then we had Trump, right? So like it's not like these things don't just because somebody we get one positive experience doesn't mean that the massive monster that is like white supremacy and rampant like uncontrolled capitalism is like destroying everything, right? So those things are the big monsters, and those are the things that we still need to fight. We still need to like address those concerns. Um,
Does that explain or describe, in a sense, why you call that chronicle, that project for Black teens, the struggle? It's like it's unending. It's just,
yeah. Yes, it's the struggle is never ending. I mean, then yeah, that book, the struggle, like within that context, we imagined it as this. There's this thing called the weight, and that's what the struggle wears. The character of the struggle, who wears the weight. That's how he gets his power. And he can only carry the weight with familiar with a second, because it's so hard to carry all of that, right? So um, so yeah, but only you can only carry it for so long. You have to share it with others. You have to collaborate. You have to um, it has to. It only shows up when it's necessary. So like in the same way for this for Dusty, it's like there's there's a struggle, there's a weight in the work, and you have to like uh you know you have to keep like working to make things, I guess, better, because it never stops, right? But we can, I think, through art, through music, through dance, through like community, through these kinds of collective practices, we can make it better, and like make it like exciting.
yeah, you can vitalize spaces. Yes. Um, I'm thinking about the fact that February is, well, it's called Black History Month, and I'm thinking about the stories that you tell, the stories that you're from, and this incredible body of work that you're contributing to the story um, of us, of Bunnell, of our community in Alaska. And I wonder if there's a story that you might like to share, that honors your your roots in some way a story that's shaped you, that what you come from, you know, um, good or bad, for better or for worse, a story that refers to, you know, your origins, and it shapes you today.
Yeah, like uh, I have had like this pretty, I would say, extensive um, like history. Like I've done a lot of stuff, been a lot of places, and but I think one of the things that uh, was like always really like valuable to me um, was just the experiences of uh, like my I guess my parents, you know, and so I guess it's not so much a story; it's more of an explanation of their experiences and how that helped build my understanding of Blackness as a human. So like, I mean, both of my parents were super hardworking. Um, I would say sort of very creative individuals who had to like you know make money and the uh, and I'm sure that's a story that a lot of people had to have, but like um, what I experienced growing up was you know two military parents who uh, didn't necessarily, or I'm sorry, who wanted to make sure that their kids um, had, you know, just the ability to understand themselves as through their Blackness and through their creativity. Um, even though they themselves, even though they sort of lost their creativity, uh, I don't want to say they lost it, but you know, they had to work. So instead of that, what they did was they placed all of that to me as an individual. So they made sure I had as many art courses, as many art classes as I could take. You know, they made sure that they showed up to these you know to art shows and these kinds of things. And what was important for me in that experience and developing was just their uh, I guess when you know when they were tired they still like showed up, you know, when they were uh, you know when they were late they were still there, you know, like all these kinds of things, all the things that kind of can get in the way when you have a full life where you still want to support um, your child's like uh, sort of nascent growth. Um, so they helped build that and instill that into me. But the part that was most important was they always did that with there was always like, okay, so you're going to go to art classes, but we're going to make sure that you're going to get some Black historical education. We're going to they made sure that you know Blackness was uh, I shouldn't be afraid of my Blackness. I shouldn't temper my Blackness, and I should be proud of it. You know, um, I should speak with inflection and speak strongly. You know? And when I do make work, um, uh, I should present it in a way that's like you know both humble but bombastic. You know, like in a way where you let people know that this was hard and involved a lot of work, but it also you know it, uh, you know like I'm like you should pay attention. You know, this is beautiful, and you should say that loudly. And so I guess that, like, I mean, my parents, they taught me uh, to speak loudly, and but to be humble in my presentation. And
That's beautiful. That's a really moving tribute to your parents. I want to thank you so much for that's yeah, as Amber Webb said today, it's beautiful. And I want to thank you. We all do for joining us today, for giving us this orientation to where you're coming from in the show that opens tonight, 5 to 7. It's tell us a little bit. It's a multimedia experience. You've got DJs.
uh, yeah. So if you're looking for a quiet, nice, like conversation, it will not be that. This is just gonna be it's a good vibe, you know, elevate your higher self, dance a little bit. I'm, you know, kind of experience. This is I would say it's more of an emotional and artistic release for me and for others. This is a collaborative project. I um, Collaboration is important for me. So like so the people who are DJing are also you know, I've worked with them for years, and they're also other artists. So we made an original album actually that's we're going to be playing on this uh, I guess the show. So be there to listen to that. Yeah, it's a listening party. Throw on some good vibes. You know, give yourself a nice bit, a little imbibing liquid or whatever you fancy, and check us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward
Thanks
to.
so much, guys. I've got the card.
Oh yes, awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so there's music. There's going to be a little live drawing. I think there's going to be some other shenanigans. You may see some wild stuff on, but you know, mostly I would say be happy to. You can literally throw it on just for the music, and you'll have a great time. I think this music
Look, really looking forward to it. Thank you. So 5 to 7 tonight, and one can register to join this experience at BunnellArts.org.
Right. Thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate it.
And we thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just gorgeous.
Did anybody want to have any questions?
Well, you've got some nice comments in the chat, David. Don't hesitate to
I have not
check out the nice stuff. I can just copy all of it and send it to you if you'd like. It's just, you know, a lot of good feedback.
Oh yeah, yeah. If anybody's worried or wondering, yes, thank you. It'll be a multimedia experience. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be like animation and stuff, but like you'll definitely have like images and access to be able to the online store and for little pieces. And there's some if you actually come to the gallery, you know, COVID safe, of course. But there's little pieces of plexi, and you can make your own transparency on shop.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I'll check out these questions people ask me. I'll see if I can respond.
I sent them all to you, so you've got them.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. All righty. Bye-bye.